start in a second. Right, okay. We'll make a start, Becca, because other people might join us as we go along, and let's see. But for those who are on the list of who made a relevant representation, they will have received today a project update, which is the Rule 8 letter, which includes the final examination plan and details of how to submit a written representation. And I think, Becca, people would welcome a little bit of advice at this stage as to what sort of things should go into a written representation, and is there anything that we should particularly look out for at this early stage of the examination. Bearing in mind that some people have got more than one area of interest in this, in that some people have land that may be being compulsorily, if only I could say the word, purchased. Others will be impacted by the huge level of air pollution, which it's already at illegal levels in the area, and this is likely to bring yet more traffic, so increasing those levels. So yeah, so I don't know, and maybe I should do introductions as well first, because for those who don't know me, I'm Marge Powner. I'm chair of the Friends of Carrington Moss, vice chair of Save Greater Manchester's Greenbelt, and I'm also vice chair of a national group called the Community Planning Alliance. Becca is from the Transport Action Network, which is a national group that's campaigning against road schemes and for sustainable transport. And Anne, who's you can also see on the screen, is from CPRE in over in, Anne, help me out.
In South Yorkshire and the Peak
In South Yorkshire, yes. And you were also leading the campaign, or were leading the campaign against the A57 road scheme, weren't you? Yeah. So just so that you're aware, everybody, we have got some really strong experience on the call with us today. So if you've got questions, please do feel free to raise them. Just raise your hand if you've got, if you can see that function, you can raise your hand at any time, or you can put questions in the chat if you prefer to do it that way. Okay, sorry, Becca. So we'll go back now to say, is there any advice that you can give us at this early stage of the scheme?
Do we want to do introductions for other people on the call as well? That'd be nice.
I'm very happy to do that as well. Andrea, you were first to join us, so do you want to go first?
Well, I was just interested in joining the meeting. I'm a resident of Simister Village, so interested in seeing what's going to be spoken about tonight, really.
Super. Okay. Councillor Berry?
Hello there. Yes, obviously I'm a councillor for Radcliffe. I've not had a great deal with this sort of area, but I am interested in what's going on, so to get an update.
Super. Christian?
Hi, Christian Dodsworth. I'm the chair of Simister Village Community Association. Pleased to meet you.
Super.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And
Thank you, Christian. Yeah. Thank you, Christian. Okay, and Kat? Are you able to come off mute, Kat? Oh, you're having issues. Okay. Do you want to just put in the chat, Kat? Are you a resident of Simister, or just put something in the chat, or And we'll come back to that in a minute. Yes, so super. Thanks, Kat. Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone.
Okay.
So you can place me, my accent. I'm born and bred in Hampshire, where I live on the south coast, so quite a long way away. And I was going to do a little bit, I hope this will be helpful, and I'm not teaching my grandmother to suck eggs, but I was going to do a little bit of an overview of this type of examination, because they're quite peculiar to big road schemes. These examinations for a development consent order, or DCO, it's they're run under the Planning Act 2008, and they're designed for what are called Nationally Strategic Infrastructure Projects, or NSIPs. So they're these examinations, or we used to call them public inquiries in old money, they are particular for these NSIPs, and they're run in a particular kind of way. And so it was actually the last Labour government that brought them in, and the idea was that they would streamline public inquiries, which used to just run on and on and on and on for sometimes years, at huge public expense. And the idea was to speed everything up, give everything a timetable, a very strict timetable that's laid down in law. They literally can't go over the timetable. So it's all laid out in the Planning Act. And these examinations would last for 6 months. And then the examiners would have 3 months to write up their report. And then the Secretary of State has another 3 months after the examining authority the examiners have submitted their report. The Secretary of State has then 3 months to take his or her decision. So it is incredibly fast, certainly compared to how it used to be. And they 6 months sounds like a lot, but it goes by in a flash, and it is very demanding. Anne is much more experienced than me in going through all of these. No, she is. she's very modest as well, but she's the dab hand at all of this. She's gone through more DCO examinations than we've had hot dinners, and so they are hugely demanding. I'm not going to lie about it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And you can give as much or as little of your time as you want to give. If you have, like most people, other commitments like jobs and families, then don't beat yourselves up about it. You can only do as much as you can. You will not be able to read everything that comes out of this examination. In fact, nobody can. Even I suspect the examiners can't. There are literally too many documents will be churned out. So my advice, and I'm sure we'll agree, is you've got to kind of have a battle plan right from the beginning, and just prioritize what's important to you. Be realistic about your time limits, and don't beat yourselves up. You won't be able to respond to everything, and just be realistic about what you can and cannot do, and prioritize what you will achieve out of this examination. So, as I say, they will follow a rigid timetable. I think they've published the time. Yeah, they published it today, didn't they? And they will stick to it, and because they have to. And it is like a roller coaster. And the usual process is that they will publish written questions. Oh, that's the other thing I forgot to mention. In the old system with public inquiries, it all used to be oral, all done in oral hearings, with barristers arguing backwards and forwards, and lots and lots of cross-examination. And you don't get you do still have that, and you do have hearings, and you can attend them remotely like we're doing today, so you don't have to actually be in the town hall or wherever it's being held, the examination. You don't have to be there in person, but a lot of the emphasis is on written evidence, and they have tried to shift everything into written evidence. And I've always, everyone's different, so you may find it's easier for you to stand up and speak. and that's absolutely fine. And there will be a transcript, you know, all of your evidence will be recorded orally. And you may find that's the easiest thing for you to do. You know, you may not be intimidated by that at all. You may want to stand up and give your case at an oral hearing. Other people would run a mile at the thought of doing that and would rather give their evidence in writing, write it in their own time, at their own pace, and submit it. So it's entirely up to you, again, what approach you want to take. Sorry, Marge mentioned at the outset this written representation. That is a really important stage. So the first stage is already passed, which is writing your relevant representation, and that registers you for the examination. If you haven't put in a relevant representation, you're not allowed to speak. You're not allowed to participate in the examination. So I hope everyone here did put in their relevant representation and get their unique reference number, I think it's called. That should be
Becca, if I could just interrupt for 1 minute. If anybody didn't and they're on the call or listening to this afterwards, then do send an email through to friendsofcarringtonmoss@gmail.com with any thoughts you have, because we can either, we or somebody else that is a who has put in a relevant representation can speak for you. So do let us know, because don't assume that the rest of us will think of things that you have thought of, basically.
Yeah, really good point, Marge. So yeah, you register first, and then the written, if you've registered, the written representation stage, which is coming up soon. Marge, do you know the deadline for that off the top of your head?
Yes, it's the 24th, so it's next Tuesday.
Right. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just
so that's why we wanted to hold the session tonight, because it gives people a few days to get their written representation developed, if you like. Yeah.
Right. Hey.
And also they have a very specific approach here. You have to put it on using the have your say button on the website. And they want you to give your unique number as well when you put in your written representation. So
yeah. So the written representation is basically your case against the scheme. So you're outlining what your argument is against it. So it's your opportunity. So for some people, that's all they do. They put in, that's what they want to say. They put in their submission, their evidence, and that's that. And they've had their say. And then, or you can decide that you want to participate a bit more in the examination. So but to warn you, they will be churning out stuff, and you have to put things in by each deadline. So you know, for instance, the first written questions might come out, and they may be on, you know, your particular interest. Maybe it's noise or air pollution, and you could go, oh, I want to answer that one, you know, and then you put in, there is a timetable and it all be laid out there, so you can decide that you want to engage with the written representations. Maybe National Highways will put in a piece of evidence further along in the inquiry, and it's an absolute load of rubbish, and you feel like you have to respond to that. So you then get the opportunity to respond to their evidence further along. So it's up to you how much you want to engage and participate in it, and you know, how much time you have on your hands, how much time you've got to read and respond to all of this. But the written representation stage is key. That is, you know, that's sort of, if you're going to participate, that's the bare minimum. That's the bit where you have to participate.
And if I could just interrupt again, Becca, yep, please. I did write to the project officer or the case officer about the written representations, and they did say that the examining authority will take into account all the comments we've already made in the relevant representations. So if you've already said everything you want to say in your relevant representation, you don't need to say anything more, but you can expand on it, you know, by giving some actual data or something to substantiate your comments, if you want to do so. Just to say, if you've already said what you want to say in your relevant representation, you don't need to repeat it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just an opportunity because you only get, is it 500 words, isn't it, in your relevant representation?
500 in your relevant, yes, and
Yeah.
it's 1500 in the written. But you can go over that, but you have to do an executive summary if you go over 1500 words.
Yeah,
1500
is quite a lot, you know. So.
It is a lot, yeah. So
most people manage to get it all done in 1500. So so I was just going to sort of say something about the planning inspectorate. I'd say on the whole, we've had very, very positive experiences with them. They're very professional and they're really good at helping people. So you have the examining authority. I can't remember, how many inspectors have you got for this scheme? I know Ken Stokes.
I saw 2 at the meeting, the oral hearings last week. So there may be more, but I only saw 2.
And the lead one is Ken Stone, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
And he did the LTC, if I remember correctly. He was the lead examiner at the Lower Thames Crossing. And I know that people found him very good there. And they're very courteous. They're very, very courteous. And then behind the examiners, whose responsibility it is to listen and hear and read all the evidence and then write their recommendations report for the Secretary of State. So behind them, there is a case team, and the planning inspectorate case team are usually brilliant. They are really, really helpful. So if you have any questions, do go to them. So are we able to, would it help, do you think, if we screen shared and like we could just like have a little look around? And do you think this would be helpful? Have a look around the planning inspectorate scheme page to sort of show people how to navigate it and find things, because it can be very confusing. It took me ages to learn my way around. Should we do that?
That'd be great. Yes, thank you, Becca.
I'll just have to I'll tell you what, Anne, do you want to fill in for me and sort of say anything else that I've missed while I upload the page and work out how to screen share?
Well, I think you've done a pretty good job, actually, Becca. I mean, the only other thing I was going to say is if you're going to look at the questions or other papers that are coming out, there are some really important ones that might be helpful for your case. You really need to be organised and focused, so prioritising, as Becca said, on what your interest is, and particularly as local residents, what information you can bring that National Highways won't know about or will have overlooked or whatever. So the really important documents are the library, which will give you access to absolutely every document that is in the examination. And then if you're actually looking for how to present your case, there's a national planning policy statement on the national networks, which sets the rules for what the decision, for the framework for how the decision will need to be made. So you don't really need to use that, but if you're using it, it will give you the framework and will tell you which things are not worth wasting time on. So for instance, statement will have been already considered, and we've tried on a number of different occasions to try to get.
I'm sorry, Anne, we just missed what you said there. What would already have been considered?
The alternatives, the national.
Oh, the alternatives. Okay.
Yeah, the alternatives to the scheme. I did actually, in my relevant representation, talk about alternatives because I keep on and on. But if you've not got a lot of time, don't waste time on alternatives because they take them as a fait accompli. it's in the RIS, the road investment strategy, it's the alternatives have been looked at. So there's that sort of thing out of the national planning policy statement.
Can I just, sorry, Anne, could I just interrupt 1 second? Those alternatives, are they alternatives just for road schemes, or would they have considered, you know, whether a rail scheme would work better or something like that?
They're supposed to have looked at all alternatives across the board. So instead of saying we need to build a road here, this is what it's going to look like, they need to have said, okay, how can we solve the problem here? So that could be rail, it could be local transport schemes, buses, better active travel. Those are the sort of things they should have looked at. And of course they haven't, because they've just done a road scheme. So that's why I was persisting with it. But every time I've raised it, the examiners have just done it very cursorily. The Secretary of State has taken no notice in their decisions, really. So I think on the whole, if you've not got much time, wouldn't bother about alternatives. Sorry, Becca, you were ready.
All right. So I'm going to have a go at sharing, and I've not done this on Microsoft Teams before, so I hope it works.
It did work when you just did it.
Yes,
So, yeah,
it did.
I clicked on it and I did it right. So there we are. So I've put in the chat, I've put the link to the Planning Inspectorate page for this scheme, so for this examination. So that's what we're looking at here. So this is where you get to, and it looks very confusing. It is at first. So but it is pretty logical. So they always have this box here, the latest update, and it's always so the latest thing. So you can see the Rule 8 letter is the latest thing here that's come out, and then you can click on there, view all updates, and it will give you all the latest things that have been churned out. So once the examination starts getting going, you know, you'll have more of this. You know, this has been published, that's been published. All the deadline 2 submissions have been published, whatever it is. So that so that's where you'll find all the latest updates. So we'll go back to the home page. So I always use there's 2 ways to find things. So you'll have thousands of documents that will be churned out of this examination, and to find your way around it it's mind-boggling. So Anne and I will try and make it easier for you. So there's 2 routes for you to try and find things. You can either go here, the examination library, which is a PDF document which has which they update constantly, and they list all of the documents as they're coming out. They list them all, and so you can find things by clicking on there, doing Control F and trying to find something. Or the other way is to go up here and go to the documents page. Can everyone see my cursor? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So so you click on documents, and down it's down here they've got this filing system. So sorry, my kids have just come in and they're being noisy. I'm just going to close the door. Hang on. Oh, that's better. So down the side here you can see their filing system. So the one that you'll mainly need is developers application. So there's 156 documents already. That's their that's their application. And then you've also got examination. So we're up to 19 documents here. So you can it says 2 routes, as I say, to try and find something. So you've got the either going in here, which is the documents tab up here, and you can you can do a search here as well in this box. You know, for if you know the document name. Unfortunately, you can't search for keywords. Oh, if only they did that, it would make everything so much easier. You can only search for document titles, which is very annoying because they sometimes give them really obscure titles.
Also search for authors, can't you?
That's a good point, Anne. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if there's someone's evidence that you particularly want to look for, you can search for the author. So the author and title, but not keyword, unfortunately. And then you can sort of narrow down your search if you know it's, you know, in the developer's application. If you click on that, you can even narrow it down to if you know it's in the environmental statement, or if you think it might be a report or a plan, there might be a plan or something like that. So you can sort of narrow it down, so you can give it a click, you know, and say, I want to search the plans. So we'll click on that, do apply filters, and there'll be 10 documents there, which are all the plans. And quite often there might be hundreds of documents. So you can go here and say, show me 100 per page, because they'll only show you the first 25. But and then you can do a search within that filter. Do you see what I mean? So you can search within plans for a keyword. So that's one way of finding your way around things. Going back to home, there should be. Oh no, it's gone to home, not for the planning inspectorate, not for the page. Sorry, not for this scheme page. There we go. So now we're back at the scheme homepage. Yeah, there we go. So if you scroll down, so we've got the updates about the project. You've got a link there to the National Highway Scheme page if you want to go there. Project stage, and then it tells you how you can contact the planning inspectorate. So there we go, that's their email address, their direct one. And if you've got any question, honestly, they're so helpful. Just ask them and they will help you out. I mean, that's their job, is to help you out, is to help people to participate in this process. This isn't for lawyers, this isn't for local authorities only, this is for you as local residents. This is going to impact on you more than anyone. So this is your opportunity to have your say, and those people are there. They're paid for us as taxpayers to help you participate in this examination. And the examiners will treat you with as much courtesy as they do the local authorities and the barristers. And you have every right to have your say at this examination, because this impacts on you more than anybody else. So don't be shy, and you know, have your say. So did you want to? Is there anything else, Anne, that I've missed about how to find your way around?
No, not about how to. No, absolutely not. No, that's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, Becca, if you could just go to the Have Your Say page.
Yeah.
I was looking at that earlier. Oh, you're just on the examination.
Yeah, no, I'd already clicked on the examination library, because I just wanted to show you how that's laid out. So this is sort of explanation of how it's laid out, and then this is the it's a PDF, as I say, and it's got a list of all the documents, and they've all got a number. So this is another way of finding documents. Some people prefer to do it this way. I always prefer to look through the documents tab, but anyway, yes.
And you can search that PDF, can't you? So sometimes it might be easier if you don't quite know what the name of the document is. It might be easier to use the PDF than the other way.
Yeah. And then there's the have your
say. Yeah. Now if you go to that Have Your Say page, if you just scroll down a little bit, well, it's telling you that you can't submit anything because there are no open deadlines. Now there is an open deadline, because we've got the deadline to submit our written representations, but we can't submit them yet because we're not being given the opportunity. So I just wondered whether you thought I should raise that with the case officers, because if people are ready to submit, at the moment they can't submit anything.
I imagine pins haven't got, because the Rule 8 letter's only just come out today, isn't it?
Yeah.
I imagine they are usually a few hours to a day behind. Sometimes it can take them a little while to update the web page. But if they haven't updated it tomorrow with a portal here to be able to submit your written representation, then get on to them, and say, when's it going to be open?
When is it going to be open? Yeah, okay. Because not everybody has, all the time in the world. They have specific times when they can do these things, don't they? Totally. So, yeah.
Actually, I've just noticed down here, there's get updates. So there's 2 ways to get information about the scheme. And one is when you've registered, but you will only hear certain updates that way. They'll only tell you, only about like the biggest things. If you want to hear everything that is going on with this examination, then there's another route, but be warned, you will be bombarded. But you have to register to get updates from this website. So every time this website is updated, you'll get an email. And it can be useful if you really want to monitor what's happening with this. But you click on that and you go there. I've already done it. And you just put your email address in. And then they ask you, do you want to receive this, or this, this type of information or that type of information? And you can sort of choose the level of, emails you want to receive from them. But otherwise, quite often, you can be in the dark about what's going on with this examination. You be like, how does everyone else know what's going on? And I don't. And it's because people haven't signed up to get these updates. So I do recommend, actually, if you do want to engage with the examination, signing up with to get these emails via the Get Updates tab down there. If you ever want to find out the examination timetable, you can click on that tab. I think they often have it like a PDF version of it, so you can print it out. And then I with examinations that I've been involved in, I've written, the key deadlines on my calendar and written a reminder, 2 days before, don't forget to put in your deadline 9 or whatever submission. And if you want to.
Yeah. And I think the other point I think to raise is that when I joined the open floor hearing this week or last week, I didn't register to attend it. And they did throw the floor open for any other questions. So I was able to listen in, but because I hadn't registered to attend, I wasn't able to say anything or ask any questions. So even if you don't think that you want to say anything at an open floor hearing or another meeting, if you get the opportunity to register to attend, do register, because if there is something that comes up in the meeting and you want to speak, you'll only have that opportunity if you've registered.
Very good point.
It was nothing major, but I would have liked to have asked a question of clarification, at the time. But anyway, it's just to bear that in mind.
There's no harm in registering, even if on the day you don't feel like it. It's a sort of use it or lose it situation. You might as well register. Then if you want to stand up, then you have the right to stand up. But yeah, it's Marge says, it's all very strictly controlled, because it is very demanding for the examiners. They have a lot of stuff to go through. So it's a very it's not spontaneous or ad hoc or anything like that. It's very, very timetabled. You usually get about 2 weeks between documents being published and then your response, the deadline for your response to these documents. So it's very fast. So that's why I do recommend signing up for the updates, and so you are alerted that National Highways have submitted X, Y, or Z, and then you'll usually then only have 2 weeks before the next deadline comes along and you've got to get your response in.
Yeah. Just before we, oh, sorry, Anne, did you want to come in there?
I just wanted to say that underneath on that home page, underneath there's guidance, which the National Planning Inspectorate produces, which is quite useful. If you're in doubt about something, it's quite useful to go and read the guidance because it does help you. And I've been there a lot of times. But the other thing I wanted to say was that the process is actually quite interactive, and that National Highways will respond to every written representation and every relevant rep. So that's why you need to be fully informed, because you're going to get a response from National Highways and you're going to want to go back and have another attack at them. So you do need to keep on the qui vive if you want to keep on and on making your point.
Yeah, super. And just before I throw the floor open to questions, I just wanted to, I'll just share my screen very quickly, just to share with people what is actually at this deadline, which is next Tuesday. So there's a number of things which are not to do with us. So if the statutory parties, which I assume are people like Natural England or the utility companies and things like that, they need to express their wishes by next Tuesday. The applicant, National Highways, has got some actions as well. Comments on the relevant representations that Anne was just mentioning there. So that's their comments on the relevant representations. But I assume, and Anne, Becky, let me know, can we comment on other people's relevant representations as well? So we could support them or we could challenge them, depending on whose relevant representation it is. So if we want to do that, we need to do it by next Tuesday. Now, there were around 50 relevant representations from individuals, i.e. members of the community. A number of others were put in by people who had agents, and they were mostly people who whose land was either being compulsorily purchased or being involved in some way. And then obviously there was the council and others. So you can look at the relevant representations in the examination library that Becca just showed you earlier. The written representations, which is what we were talking about at the beginning. So if we want to do one, we have to do it by the 24th. Then the applicant's draft itinerary for ASI. What's ASI? Does anybody know?
Oh, accompanied site inspections.
Oh, yes, that's right. You're right. Yeah. So if required, I thought I'd seen something that said they weren't going to do any accompanied site inspections, but anyway. So requests by interested parties to be heard at any further open floor hearings. So we just need to be aware that if you didn't speak at the last one and you really want to speak orally, as Becca said, if that's something that you would feel most comfortable doing, you need to register your request by next Tuesday. The people affected by CPOs, they need to register by next Tuesday. They also want the people that spoke at last week's open floor hearing, they want them to put their submission in writing and send it in by next Tuesday as well. So if anybody was speaking at the open floor hearing, and they did hear from a number of people last week, then they have to put their written version of what they said. They need to submit that by next Tuesday. And then any other information requested by the examining authority. Now, I don't think any of that information, you know, we're not being asked to answer questions at this stage. So I don't think we need to worry about that last one. But if people are either looking at this today or at a later time, then next Tuesday is the deadline for a number of deliverables, and we need to bear that in mind.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I'm just going to put a load of links in the chat. I really don't want to overwhelm people, but it's because the DCO application was, what was it, 150 documents, something like that.
Yeah.
It's very hard to know where to start, you know, and Anne and I have done this a million times before, and I think I found out where most of the key information is. So there's several key documents, you know, that you should really have a look at if you're going to, you know, write something. Then, you know, one of the key ones is called the case for the scheme. So it's them, you know, it's like their relevant, their written representation. So it's their case for the scheme, and it's an outline saying why this scheme is needed and why it's a good thing. There's something called the transport assessment, and that's where all the transport figures will be. And then included in the environmental statement, they'll have a chapter on air quality, they'll have a chapter on human health, they'll have a chapter on climate change. So I'm going to put, because I've already, there we go, I've already got them already. Right, have they gone in? Yeah, there they are.
Yeah, they've come in. Yeah.
There's a whole bunch there that I think are important. You may have other ideas, but I think that they're very useful ones that you can copy and paste and take a look at, or not if you want to. But I've noticed in quite a lot of inspectors' recommendations reports and decision letters recently, there's one thing that's been bugging me that they keep saying is nobody challenged the need for the scheme. And so I think it would be really, really useful if everyone in their written representations just says that the need for the scheme has not been made. The case for the scheme, or the need for the scheme, however you want to phrase it, you know, has not been made. They they will, National Highways will produce at this, you know, first deadline. They will produce also a response to everybody's relevant representations when you first registered. And in my experience, they never answer the points that you made. They never do. They just gloss over things, or they just simply ignore you. So it's really worth having a look at how National Highways responded to your submission, because quite often they completely ignore what you've said, and you can go back and say that the applicant, National Highways, have still not responded to my point. They've completely misled the examiners, or whatever you want to say.
Well, that's a good point. So I think we should encourage everybody to challenge the need for the scheme, because we should be now looking at sustainable transport, not building new roads. So okay.
Can I just
yeah,
that all sounds really daunting. It's really important, and obviously I would do what Becca has suggested. But if you feel daunted, there is a non-technical environmental chapter which brings it all together in one, and then you could then go out of that into more depth if you wanted to. And the other thing to look out for is the local impact report from the local authorities. They're not obliged to do it, but what they are obliged to do in the local impact report is to give an objective. It doesn't matter whether they're for the scheme or against it. They have to produce the local impact report, which is actually objective and gives you the proper impacts of all of the scheme. So that's really worth looking at, because, for instance, Bury, one would imagine they would come down really hard on the air pollution.
Yeah. They have made some comments on the air pollution, and of course Greater Manchester has a clean air plan which is currently with the government, and it will be for the boroughs to meet that clean air plan and the requirements of it. But if National Highways create something here, create a monster, if you like, that the surrounding boroughs can't meet the clean air plan, it is the surrounding boroughs that are going to be challenged by the government, not National Highways, even though, well, everybody seems to pass the buck, to be honest. One will say that it's National Highways who are responsible for the air pollution, for example, on the motorways, but National Highways are not monitoring the impact in the village, for example, Simister Village. So, mind you, I'm not sure that Bury is even monitoring it now. Christian will tell us, but I'd like to throw the floor open. I know we've only got 2 people left now, but if either Kat or Christian want to raise some points or questions, please do take the opportunity to. Christian, did you have anything that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, apparently they are monitoring it now. So Louise wrote to the Bury Council, and they are only NOx tubes at the monitoring. It's not kind of a full monitoring, but they're actually saying that our emissions have gone down, and they're not above legal levels now. So it's almost like, and that's kind of what Louise was saying. Well, what's the need for that? You know, because that was part of the need to get the traffic moving and the emissions down. And if they're already down, what's the point in having this scheme there?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. I mean, a number of people have said in their relevant representations and in other places that the actual problem on the M60 and M62 is not at this junction, it's further down at Worsley. So, you know, I mean, if there is to be some sort of intervention, then possibly making that intervention in the wrong place.
Yeah, we've raised that on a number of occasions with Raise England. They've actually been to the village, you know, to meet with us.
Yeah.
And had all of the kind of residents saying all the same things, and they've not come back with anything. They've just basically said these are the options, and we're going to go with one or the other, and then this is the option they went with, because they were looking at an inner roundabout within the roundabout that's already there. That was one of the other options. So
right, gosh, that sounds complicated.
No, exactly.
Spaghetti Junction, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no. So they went for the Northern Loop instead.
Right.
Which, you know, as we said, it's the kind of moving ponds and lakes and all sorts of things to build it. So it's kind of, they said they've done the environmental, but have they done it properly?
Yeah. I mean, I think that is the challenge, because we know in Places for Everyone, and Christian was involved in that too, the environmental and ecological assessments were very, very poor, you know, to non-existent.
Yeah, and they were also done by the developers, so the kind of,
Interesting, this point that you've raised now, because in fact in 2021, in an advice note that PINS wrote after meeting National Highways, they actually said the applicant provided an overview of the wider development aspirations held for the locality, which, if they came to fruition, could require further interventions to the strategic road network and consideration as part of the applicant's cumulative impact assessment. But actually, there's absolutely nothing in the cumulative impact assessment that I could find to actually address this issue. So I was going to raise that in my written representation, because
you
can't just do a salami slice That's just not
No.
on doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, no, it seems very well. They say all the words, but they don't actually, they're just not meaningful, are they? You know, and it seems like the regulations and the legislation is just bypassed, you know. So yeah, I couldn't find anything in any of the documents about, and I mentioned this on the call yesterday, Becca, the Article 2 of the Human Rights Act, because they do mention, I think it's Article 6, it's to do with a compulsory purchase order and what have you. So they have looked at the Human Rights Act, but they haven't looked at Article 2, which is the right to life. And there is increasing evidence now that even low levels of air pollution can significantly affect people's health and well-being and can cut short their life expectancy. So I do plan to raise that in my written representation.
In most DCO applications, national highways do usually, there it is, include something called an equality impact assessment.
Yeah.
I've just found it by using the search, and I'll just put I've not looked at it, but I'll just put a link to it in the chat there.
Well, that will be interesting because I will have a look at that specifically, Becca, because one of the issues that's been raised by Public Health England is that the people that are impacted by air pollution are typically the poor and the vulnerable.
Yeah.
Many of whom don't have cars, but they're impacted by the air pollution caused by other people's cars driving through their areas or close to their areas, and these are the most vulnerable people in our communities. So I will take a look at that EQIA and look at whether there's things that we should bring in as a consequence of that. Yeah. Okay, Kat, I know you were struggling, but you didn't have any particular questions just now. Christian, did you have any other questions that you wanted to raise?
No, I don't think so. It's been really useful. I think you've kind of answered everything really. It's, you know, you've gone through the whole process, which is really useful. So thank you for that. And kind of what you've been asking going along, Marge has answered my questions, to be honest.
Yeah, super. Kat, I'll just wait for you to finish typing and make sure there's no other questions.
I've just put my email address in the chat there. So my job is roads and climate campaigner for TAN, and my job is to support communities who are having a massive, great big road scheme dumped near them. So this is exactly what I'm paid to do. So I'm here to help anyone that's got any questions, and if I can't answer them, I'll ask Anne. He's the real expert.
Thank you. Now, I think you're both experts, and it's been fabulous having both of you on the call. So I do want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. I'm sorry there weren't more people on the call. People did suggest that they were joining us but haven't come, which is disappointing. But we will have the recording, and obviously people can use that to catch up afterwards.
Great.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate your time.
Welcome.
Okay.
Bye.
Good evening.
You're probably right, Kat. She says they're probably stuck on the M60. They probably are. Oh dear. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.